I'm Josh Farley, president of Redline Electric and Solar. Join me as we talk to contractors, business owners, and experts who are willing to share their experiences to help you overcome obstacles when you're taking your business up and to the right. Hey, good morning. We're here with Jeff Fleadom. He is the director of the Register of Contractors here in Arizona. Jeff, I appreciate you coming in.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks for having me.
How did you get to this?
That's a great question. I grew up in the construction industry. My dad and his was licensed in Arizona in 1959 after they moved down here from Oregon with his partners. Grew up in the construction industry. As a lot of guys who grew up in the industry, our dads, anything that he could have used a piece of equipment for, like a backhoe, I got to do by hand. So it was,
Right.
Jeff will dig that footing. So it's what I grew up in. I love the industry. I ended up in the mid-'70s getting into another industry for quite a few years, and then came back to Arizona to become partners with my brother again in the family business. And Contracting, yeah. We're small residential general contractor. Ended up doing just a lot of, it's almost niche kind of renovations. We might do a couple $100,000 and never even move the inside of a wall. We were blessed. We got hooked up to some clients that liked us, and they started referring us, and it was
awesome.
really blessing, you know.
What did your dad do?
He was a general residential contractor. Had done some commercial. He had some TI contracts with the Great Clips and ITT Financial.
So you
some
followed
things like
right
that.
in his footsteps.
All of those things. I don't know if I followed. I was pulled into the footsteps.
Yeah, I was pulled too. My dad's electrician.
So we were. From the time I was 10 years, my first job was carrying water buckets to the guys. There's pictures. There's a picture hanging in my wall. I'm like 5 years old with the hard hat on. But it was a family business. It was a family business, and I was raised. His motto, his business motto was "I dare to be square." And if you say that to people today, they go, "What the heck does that mean?" Well, in old guys like me, gray hairs, we know what that means. A square deal, a fair deal. You're straight up. You tell the right story. I used to hang around a bunch of guys who said integrity is doing what's right when no one's watching.
Right.
It's easy to do what's right when somebody's watching, but I was raised that way. Not saying I've got clay content in my feet, so it's not like I'm not a walk on water kind of guy, but. My mom and my dad were great people. They were raised, they were born in the early 20s and late teens. They grew up in the Depression. They always worked hard. My dad worked a lot of jobs. Sometimes he'd had 3 or 4 jobs. And if you ever met him, his index and his second finger were flat. And there was always interesting. I found out the reason why is one of his second jobs was working in sugar beet factories, and it wore his fingers to the quick. So he could raise money, so he could pay for things and take care of his family, and that's what he did. And I don't know if I have that kind of character. I hope that I do, that I would do that, but he did, and that's what I grew up around.
Gotcha. So strong work ethic.
So absolutely.
So the business, your residential contracting, what happened to that?
Well,
the family business.
With the family business, there was a point where my brother and I don't know if you have ever been in a family business. My brother and I decided that we were going to be brothers longer than we were going to be in business together. And we both had a little bit different idea on how things should happen. And so we split up. I wasn't really quite ready to retire. Somebody had told me that there was he knew a guy at the Registrar of Contractors, and I really wasn't familiar a whole lot with the Registrar of Contractors. They were looking for inspectors.
Right.
What the heck? I'll go talk to them, and I did, and I ended up going to work with them. My brother putzed around for a little while. And then in 2015, he closed the company down, which is kind of hard. It's the only thing he ever knew.
Right.
It's the only thing any of us ever knew. And so he closed it down, and he's retired. He's usually in places that are cooler than I'm at. So he's usually in his motorhome someplace.
Gotcha. That's awesome.
So I worked for the Registrar for a while. And I found, and I liked what I did.
What was your role there?
I was an inspector. They call them investigators now.
Yeah.
A construction investigator inspector. What our guys do is it's a little bit different than you might inspect they're not building inspectors. Our guys aren't building inspectors. They could almost be considered deficiency or defect type inspectors.
Gotcha.
Or someone will make an allegation, or our investigators go out and they take a look at that, determine whether or not it's within a workmanship standard, or it's something that that is a violation of our statutes, and if so, then there's a report written. Also might get a complaint that doesn't have anything to do with workmanship, one of the other statutes that regulate licensed contractors. Now we have an unlicensed group of folks that investigate unlicensed activity in the state of Arizona. If you're going to be a contractor doing over $1,000 with anything, you need to be a licensed contractor.
Otherwise, that's the handyman clause.
It's not really a handyman clause.
What is that? Yeah,
I've
always heard that.
There's statute 3211-21 shows is a listing of who does not need to be licensed, and in that are anybody doing work under $1,000, material and labor
Per project.
Per project, that doesn't include if it doesn't have to be permitted.
Gotcha.
Those type of things, then that person doesn't need to be licensed. Anything over that, then they do. It doesn't mean that licensed guys don't do work under that, but if you're going to do work over that, you have to be licensed in the state of Arizona.
Let me ask you a question on the investigating side.
Sure.
So, did they call you out because you specialized in that field coming through? Did you have electricians on staff? Did you have the people that knew?
No. We have people that know, but we don't specialize. Our investigators are generalists. And here's what happens. Contrary to, a lot of people don't see what happens. Right. For instance, I'll give you an example. I got called out on an investigation. Somebody was using this product, quarter minus a product as driveways, and then it's mixed with a chemical, a material that is a green material. It's mixed with it and it hardens. Well, the problem is that when you come over the concrete sidewalk onto this, it was dipping out, and that was a complaint. It's not doing what it's supposed to. So I go out and do the inspection, take the information I do, get it all the details that I need, and then I go contact the manufacturer. I go to the manufacturer, I talk with the manufacturer, find out how it's supposed to be mixed, do all of these other things, and determine that it wasn't done correctly. Gotcha. So oftentimes complainants or respondents don't ever see that. But our inspectors do investigate those kind of things and then come up to a determination that it's not functioning as intended and it needs to be corrected by appropriate means.
So you do your research?
Absolutely.
I mean, because there's times where we get an inspector from the city, a particular city, and they come out and they're like, I don't really know what I'm looking. Can you show me? They're not necessarily
that's a whole different thing. Well, they're looking for building code.
Right.
And we are not building code inspectors.
Right.
So if we get a complaint that something has violated a code, we'll come. If it's been green tagged, we bypass that.
Gotcha.
Unless an inspector thinks that, hey, maybe the building official missed that, then our inspectors will call the building official and ask. Absent that, if somebody if they green tag, it's green.
Right.
That's what it is. So.
That's awesome. Nobody really thinks about what goes on behind the scenes.
Right.
And I always hear about, the Registrar of Contractors, we got the recovery fund, and we got these things.
Right.
I've never had a complaint against my license, ever, but nobody knows the process.
Right. Our process is what we've done, and with the help of Jim Nupp, my communications director, who works with a lot of our department heads, is we've changed our website. I don't know if you remember about 3 years ago, our website looked like it was, I don't know what it was.
The only thing I could find was the RLC search. That's all I needed to know.
It was horrible. Right. It was horrible. You had that tiny little tabs on it. You had to look and see. So he's fixed that. They've fixed that. There is a spot where you can go on that site and you can click a link and it'll show you the complete process. This is what happens. Complaint comes if this, then this. If this, then this. If this, all the way through. and it'll take you all the way through those things. And if anybody, whether it be a contractor or homeowner or anybody, has a question about that, they don't understand it, we encourage them to call. One interesting thing about us today, contrary to belief in, a lot of people look at government agencies and they go, nobody wants to do anything. We answer our phones.
Right.
The phone numbers on our business cards they actually work.
Right.
Mike DeCone's on my business card. This is my direct cell phone line and my direct phone line. So
right.
if I don't answer it, that means I'm not there, or I'm on
right.
another line. But we'll get back to you. And that also goes with our chief of our licensing department, compliance department, our legal department head, all of those folks. We answer those phones because it's important. We serve the citizens of the state of Arizona. That happens to be licensed contractors. They're not a different class.
Right.
So, and that's what we do. My goal and the entire team's goal that I've instilled and we've talked about is that our goal is to make it easier for everybody outside the walls of the agency. If it's harder for us, that's the difficulty of being that it's our customers. Ultimately, it ends up being easier. We've installed some things that were really tough for a while.
Right.
And what ended up happening is the results of that was call volumes dropped because people have the answers. So.
Well, and you touched on something specifically that we're not a different class. Some of the most successful people in the state are contractors.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you think about, we've been brainwashed, go to college, go to college, go to college. Everybody's done, now we're lacking the trades.
So how many hours do we have to talk today? So, here's...
I'm on your clock. I'm on your clock today.
So, construction science is what we're involved in.
Right.
You're involved in construction science. There's nothing about construction that's not involved in science. That's not STEM, by the way.
Right.
Science, technology, engineering, math, it's all about that. The problem is we as an industry, you're way younger than me, but old grays like us, like me,
right.
We let this get away from us. We got so busy with what's happening that we didn't tell people what's going on here. We didn't let people know what could happen. Now, my family's business, we were small potatoes. We were really small potatoes. I don't think there was probably ever a calendar year where we did over $2 million gross.
Right.
However, we learned how to pay our bills on time. We paid others before we took it. I remember my brother and I going, so how much do you need this week?
Right.
Yeah. And because the idea was we paid our subcontractors and our suppliers first, always. And what was left, we got that. So I know I'm rambling a little bit.
No, that's actually pretty good. Only 4% of businesses ever make it to $1 million.
Absolutely.
So you're doing it great.
But construction, we have a tendency, you can get,
right.
You get a big project and then it can do that. So the volume of the businesses. So what happened is we got away from that and people started thinking that being in construction sciences was fat-thumbed, dirty t-shirt,
right.
size 12 boot, size 4 hat dudes. They never understood what it means. There's a study that Colorado did that they used the top 15 college degrees and they put them on a graph. It's always nice to look at that. You go up and to the right, right?
Yeah.
So you go up and to your right and you show the earning potential of all these college degrees, the top 15. They're all different. Each one has a different color and it all goes to a different number. Then they overlaid an electrician over the top.
Right.
Earnings, top third of all those degrees. Guess what else? Dave Ramsey digs this. No debt.
Right.
No college debt.
Right. You're getting paid to learn.
Well, you're earning
right.
while you're learning.
Right.
You're not getting paid to learn.
You're earning while you're learning. I like that one.
So,
earning while you're learning.
Apprenticeships, whether, and I'm not talking union, non-union, doesn't matter. An apprenticeship is a 4-year degree.
Yep.
Without debt. So that's where we're at. Not only that, it's an industry or a career path, as you will, that you can grow, you can start to work for somebody. Like I could come to work for you as an electrician, learn how to do these things, get all of these things together, and I could start my own business as a single dude. I might need to buy a truck,
right.
get some stuff, and I can start my own business. Now, we always talk about, kids need to code, they need to do this, everybody needs to do that. Guess what? If everybody's a coder, there's no building to code in.
Right, for sure.
There's no electrical lines to run their equipment. So it's an honorable, awesome career path. And it's no different than going and saying, when a school counselor says to a kid when they start talking to them about how they're going to go their careers, I think they start, I can't remember, when I was in high school, I don't even know if we had counselors. We had some desks.
Right.
we had non-electric typewriters, but they start talking to them, and they start talking to them about what they can do. And a lot of times it's, well, this kid isn't college material.
Right.
It makes me crazy.
Yeah, you and me both.
So, because you think of some of the giant construction corporations,
right,
in the world, those dudes weren't they weren't college material. It's not about college material. It's about, here's what you do. Are you going to choose a construction science path? Or are you going to choose to become a doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, or a musician? What are you going to choose? It's all on the same level. The earning potential is the same. The big difference, if you choose construction path, is you can earn while you learn.
Well, and college is a business. They're trying to get money. I mean, they're a business.
Well, I agree.
It's not a non-for-profit. They're a business.
Look, and I'm not discounting higher learning,
right,
but we're pumping out kids, even in the construction managers.
Right.
Who are they going to manage?
Right.
So you're going to have a job site with 12 construction managers and nobody can do the work. You work your way up. You know that.
Yep.
I mean, we know these folks. So what did I start doing for my dad? When my first job for my dad was pulling nails out of 2x4s, straightening the nails. That's the day when the material was so much more expensive than labor. Straightening the nails and stacking the good 2x4s to be reused.
Right.
So we go from there up to my next job was helping him dry in every project that he ever did. For some reason, it seemed like every project we had to dry in because rain was coming. Rolling out felt paper.
That wasn't in Arizona.
It was in Arizona.
Really?
Yeah. Rolling out felt paper,
right.
Banging my fingers on roofing nails before nail guns, and then kind of moving up to running some jobs and doing those things. To ending up in the mid-70s, there was huge unlicensed problems here in Arizona. Trade associations were running advertisements, don't hire these guys, don't do these kind of things. And my father in 1974 had to come and lay me off because he couldn't support me in the business and my little brother and sister who were 10 years younger than I was.
Right.
So that's how we grow. So that was my core growth was there, what I learned. And I ended up in another industry where I took all those things I learned and applied those to that, and then took that and applied that to what I do today.
Right.
And when Governor Ducey looked like he was going to win, I'm a NFIB Leadership Council member and a PAC member with the National Federation of Independent Business. We all started talking how we wanted to change the registrar, how we wanted to turn it into an agency that was helpful, that didn't kick people when they're down because it was easier, that offered a hand up,
right,
even to an unlicensed guy. You've got a guy that's painting the side of a church, and he charges $1,100.
Right.
So, is the goal then to pound them into submission,
No.
or is the goal to say, hey, let's talk. You need to have a license to do this. Come, let's talk to us. Get with our licensing department. Find out what you need. This is where you can find out the details. Get
Right.
licensed. Become a business.
It's going to help
That's what
him.
happens.
Right.
That's what happens, and that's what we do today.
That's awesome.
And so, I threw my name in the hat. There were guys that I grew up with here in Arizona. A guy that I know, Rich Williams, since second grade, electrician. Mark Giebelhaus owns Marlin Mechanical since fourth grade. A couple other people I knew in the industry and the NFIB, and we all started talking. We need to change something. We need to find somebody as a director that perhaps was
Right.
a contractor. Call me kooky.
That makes sense to me.
Maybe had signed a front of a check. And when Governor Ducey got elected, and we found out that he wanted to do a search for a new director, we said, "Okay, who's it going to be?" And they all looked at me, and I said, "I'm retired." So I threw my name in the hat, and I got the call. And we all looked at each other and went, "How the hell did this happen?" Because firstly, I'm a contractor.
Right.
That's my history. That's in my book, but not a giant contractor. I'm a small contractor. I'm not on the side of billboards, or I'm not. My company's not used in studies as
Right.
what to do, and it was, and I got the appointment, and it was. I can't even. I'm still in awe of it sometimes. I'm still kind of go, how did this happen?
Well, that's what we need. Somebody who knows.
But I love what I do. I love the industry, and I've been blessed. I got to bring in a leadership team that are beyond compare. The point being is, what's happening to this person that wants to start their business in between then? Do you understand that they can't pay their rent, or they can't pay for their kids' school, or they got a car payment, or they can't earn a living to do that? Yeah, they can work for somebody else, but they can't do this business. They're trying to start a business, for God's sake.
Right.
So with that thought process and that mindset, and in instituting an intentional continuous improvement program that I'll touch bases on here in a little bit. Today we issue licenses in 18 days average.
Wow.
Now 18 days average, that's including, there's a 20-day statutory requirement on anybody that hasn't been licensed anymore, but when you lump it all together, it's 18 days.
Right.
So that means in 18 days you can be in business, and we're working to get it even faster than that.
Well, if I was sitting around for a year and I had already quit my job and I'm going to go into business, I might be forced to do a bunch of jobs under $1,000,
or maybe even more than $1,000.
or maybe even more. And we've
Right.
seen it out there. I mean, I would never do unlicensed work, but I mean, I could see that there's potential there to validate that.
Right, absolutely. So, and you can't when somebody's trying to make a living that way. However, it is so easy to get a license today. Anybody can call us, and we'll let them know what they need to do. All they got to do is call us, and we'll make sure you have our links and our phone numbers. And
When you say it's easy to get a license, you're still doing the proper checks and making sure these guys know what the hell they're doing.
Absolutely.
Right.
So there's an exam that they have to pass.
Yep.
So one of the things in Arizona, what we do is we license businesses. You're a business.
Yep.
Your business is licensed. You have a qualifying party. The business owns the license. And the qualifying party has to take an exam that they have to pass. That exam includes some general industry knowledge, some code questions, and then a portion that talks about statutes and a variety of things like that. In Arizona, we license to entry level. So
What do you mean by that?
in other words, we're not expecting somebody to have the skill of somebody that's been in business 20 years.
Gotcha.
So we license at entry level. This is a business. The license is you get to do the business, and then you get to succeed. If you succeeded, you get a place like this, a nice
Right.
place. You get all
But
these
when
other
you're
stuff.
talking entry level, like let's take an electrician that wants to license a business, he still has to be a journeyman electrician.
No, he does not.
Oh, really?
There's no such thing as a journeyman would be a union.
Or I mean
but
a skilled.
He has to pass the exams.
Right.
He has to pass the exams. So
Right.
he passes the exams, which are different. The exam for an electrician is different than for a painter. So
sure.
those kind of things, which again include some codes and things like that. So, but the journeyman per se, a lot of people think they don't have to be a union journeyman.
Right.
Okay, but they have to be able to pass the exam. So even if you're a union, if you get your journey card, you have to pass the exam.
Right,
The
and I
RSA
wasn't
exam.
ever in the union. I worked with my dad. I learned in the field,
absolutely.
and eventually was coined.
Well, right, yeah, it's an industry
journeyman,
term. It's an
sure.
industry term. So, so what I mean, it's easy. The steps are simple.
Right.
We've removed some things. It used to be that you had to list anywhere, depending on the license, anywhere from 10 projects to 20 or 25 projects. Now, these projects were projects that you had to go you yourself had to go find, you'd worked on, go find whoever was there, have them sign the document, have it notarized,
Right.
and then bring it back to the ROC. And the ROC at that time, you got it notarized by a state notary, by the way,
Yep.
the state notary. They would call to get a hold of the person who you had the signature with. If they didn't get a hold of them on the phone, they would disallow the state notarized.
Wow.
And so poof. Then instead of having 10, you had 9. Now you had to go.
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah,
so,
I know. It was
so
a
that's
lot.
not
I
required
remember
anymore. Not
jumping
only
through those
that,
hoops.
that wasn't required by statute.
Right.
So it wasn't required by statute. So those are some of the changes. Those are all ideas that keep journeying and popping up in our agency. Let's do what's required by statute. Let's not make stuff up.
Right.
Let's not regulate because we're regulators. You know.
Right,
So
we're helping.
let's do those things. Let's do what's right. Let's serve the citizens of the state of Arizona. You know, and all will be good. It will all be good. We're not always going to agree with everybody, but we'll give an answer. We'll give a straight up answer, and we're not going to try to dodge anything.
Right. My let's switch gears. My dad
Sure.
used to tell me that the ROC could come in and arrest people. Like, you ever heard anything like that?
Wow,
if
that's
you
cool.
find them unlicensed,
like a
you know,
hat and
and
stuff
I see
like
the
that.
emails. You know, the emails come from there's like wanted or this guy was arrested. Like, how does that go
okay.
down?
So we don't have arrest power. We're not sworn law off. We don't carry guns.
Right.
We can't arrest anybody. We can't force our way in anything. Now, when you get into some other areas of, not us, but code enforcement agencies and cities, they have that kind of authority.
Gotcha.
That they may be able to do that. What happens is if we have an unlicensed entity that we're investigating,
Yep.
we go to them and say, hey, get licensed. Most often the guys will get licensed or they'll do something, we'll get them done. So we find somebody that decides that they don't want to do that, and that's their right. We got to bring up. So they'll have a civil penalty, depending on what it is, or they'll get some warning letters depending on the level of it, and then if nothing else happens from there, they disappear.
Right.
We get another complaint, it starts layering on. We get it to a point where we package these complaints and we take them to prosecutors, who then the prosecutors choose whether or not to take it further.
Gotcha.
So once they do, and once they're egregious enough, these things hit what they call the top 10, our 10 most wanted, which doesn't mean we're not looking for anything else. Our top 10 creates interest from the media.
Right.
And so when the media gets a hold of us, they want to talk about the bad actors. We want to talk about higher licensed contractors.
Right.
And so that's what we do. So what about this bad guy? Well, yeah, the guy's a bad guy and we got him. Please hire licensed contractors, all licensed contractors, 95% of licensed contractors, never had a complaint, on and on and on.
Right.
I mean, our increase in the number of unlicensed complaints that we've investigated and taken on and prosecuted is up close to, I can't remember, I think I wrote it down here because I don't remember all of these things.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
We've 399% over
Holy moly.
the year 2014. That's the most recent 12 months, the most recent year. 399%. We get accused a lot of not investigating unlicensed complaints, but that's how much it's increased over the past administrations. Now that doesn't mean that they weren't doing what they believe was right.
Right.
Well, we've taken a different approach. That the guy, again, painting the wall of the church, we're not going to pound into submission.
But
We're
you
gonna help
take,
them
if somebody
but
calls
the bad
and wants to
the
complain.
bad folks, we take care of as you see.
So if somebody calls and complains, you look into it.
Yeah, we get a
No matter what it is.
I think
You do
I'm not sure
something.
what the number is of how many unlicensed
Right.
complaints we get each year. It's something 2,500-ish. As business increases, of course, it kind of
Right.
goes that way. So we're at about 2,500 cases, unlicensed complaints that we get each year, and we look at every single one of them. Some of them are valid, some of them aren't.
Right.
So
Well, that's good to know. I mean, because I spend my time and my money and my effort to be a qualified, licensed,
Absolutely.
and I've got family to feed, and it's hard for me to compete against those guys.
You're right, absolutely. What those guys are people that aren't paying right. You know, you got guys that don't have. You know, you may have licensed folks that aren't doing their unemployment insurance. They're not doing a variety of different things. Anybody that's not taking care of that labor, you know, the FICA, all those other things, they're at a 30% advantage to you right off the bat. Right off the bat. And that's why we encourage people to file formal complaints. I encourage trade associations to get together and advertise in media, billboards, a variety. We've got several trade associations that have billboards, you know, hire only licensed people. Get there, you know, work together as a trade association to get these things done. Use as a sales tool. Look, I'm licensed. Yes, this guy's unlicensed, and I know he's cheaper. I'm not going to match that. I'm licensed. I pay, you know, I'm a residential license. I contribute to the recovery fund. God forbid anything happens, you're covered there. A variety of different things. Not only that, if you still want to go with the unlicensed person, here's my card. Call me, I'll come and fix it. I know my brother and I used to do that. Give us a call when you need to fix it, and guess what? We would get calls and we'd go fix things.
Let's talk about violations. What do you think the most common violation is? I've got a guess. Can I guess?
Sure, guess.
The lack of the Register of Contractor number on advertisement. Is that a violation?
It's a violation of statute. On certain things, but and that might be added to a lot of things. That's we get a lot of contractor on contractor.
Competitive.
I know.
Yeah, I get it.
So, but workmanship complaints, and that's one statute. One of the items in 321154, the items that are citable. Workmanship complaints. I don't have that data right here, but there's the not using the license. That's oftentimes my experience as an investigator. That was oftentimes contractor on contractor. But we'll send a letter. Hey, you know, make sure your license is here. It's a statute. We're governed by statute. We don't write the statutes. We have to enforce the statutes. The other, what I would think is probably one that doesn't. The biggest violation that I ever saw, the most frequent violation was minimum elements of a contract, ARS 321158. Now it used to be A and B, different dates, but 1158. Minimum elements of a contract. It shows what must be in a contract over $1,000. I suggest that it personally would be on any contract I sign, and here's the reason why. It protects me as a contractor, and it protects the homeowner, because these are things that are specifically required. It requires you to put what you're going to do, who you are, when you're going to finish it, or something showing at some sort of timeline, and any sort of payment schedule. Now, additionally, what I always like to see is personally, what we used to do is we used to detail line item. We were so detailed in our contracts, mainly because we dealt a lot with interior designers who sometimes change their mind. Sometimes, yeah. Like 12 minutes after I love that. They helped us a lot. But so we would detail things. And the biggest problem that we find is a miscommunication or misunderstanding between the contractor and their customer. Who's going to do that? Who's going to do the facilities? Who's going to put up the outhouse? Who's going to handle the water? Who's going to take care of the trash? All of those things. By the way, who's going to go get the permit? All of those things. What are you going to do? You're going to clean stuff up, or you're not going to clean stuff up? All of those things need to be detailed. And I have friends, and I talk to people in the industry that go, well, that takes so much time. Think of this. You get a letter in the mail. It's from the ROC that says, a formal complaint's been filed against your license. The complaint number's up here. Please respond in 10 days.
How much time is that going to take?
I mean, I'm just thinking, but everybody does their business the way they want to, but it's it's kind of like, I know my brother and I used to talk about this. We knew a lot of competitors and things that never like paid TPT tax and all the thing. So I remember years and years ago, my dad got audited on TPT tax. And it was something, he made like a $20-something error in the calculation. It's easier to do the calculation now than it used to be.
Right.
So, but he got audited 3 years in a row for 20. So my brother and I said, it's so much easier to do what's right, get your TPT license, do all those things, than looking over your shoulder.
For sure.
And you include that in your overall billing. I mean, you know what your business costs are.
Sure.
You know, what are my fixed costs?
Right.
What are these things? You know, you open up a store, you're going to be open for 40 hours a week, okay? You know what your rent is. A month, you divide that by 40 times 4.334. That's how much you have to make before you even start making a profit just to pay your rent.
Well,
so
that's
you do
the
those
problem.
things as a small
they're
business.
Out there working for free. So you touched on it. I mean, they're out there working for pennies on the dollar. What they need, and because they can't afford things, and they just don't get it that they need to raise their rates so they can afford to do the things that are proper.
Well, right. So, right, and small businesses always struggle.
Yep.
And you know, you talk with on some of your other podcasts. You talk to people about, you know, how do you start a business? What's kind of ideas that you have? What would your suggestions? First, my suggestion is this: consider what all your costs are. Now, here's what a contractor's costs are: their tools, their truck, their paper, everything is your cost.
Right.
And figure that all out.
Your boots.
Your annual cost, and then what we used to do is I always used to figure just 40-hour work weeks in doing these calculations. 40-hour work weeks, 2,080 hours a year, 52 weeks, and divide that. That's what my cost is per hour to keep my door open.
Right.
My cost. Okay. So that doesn't include my wages.
Right.
So if I'm charging, I remember talking to a guy, he goes, well, I charge my customers $25 an hour. I go, okay, what else? No, just $25 an hour. I said, so that's about $8 an hour that you're making. He goes, how do you know that? Because, you know, when his taxes came back, and I go, because 2/3 of it is something else. So what you should be charging if you want to make $25 an hour is $75 an hour.
Right.
I don't understand how that works. So we lay all of this stuff out. Truck, gas, wear, tires, all of these things. Now I understand when people are starting, they're a little worried than that. And sometimes you run into customers that think, well, you're a contracting dude. You should only make $7 an hour, 12, whatever. Your shirt's dirty. So yeah, please, please fix
I think we should get paid more because we let our shirts get dirty.
Please fix my $27 million home. So,
right.
But that's what someone needs to consider. You need to consider everything. You need to consider, and I considered square footage of the little table that I had. It sounds crazy, but when you look at, people go, so what's the billing? You know, service customers, they go, oh my God, these guys are charging me $90 an hour. We go, yeah. So you've got that $125,000 truck out there that's sitting in your front of your house with $100,000 worth of equipment in it, not including the insurance, plus the guy that came in here that we're paying $20 or $25 an hour. That's what he's getting. Full load is $50.
Right.
So
certifications, training, safety.
Why. So, but you also have to become a sales type person in our industry, in our construction industry. If you're cubby-holed away that you don't have to talk to humans, or you don't have to interact,
right,
then you don't need those skills. But in our construction industry, we need skills.
Right.
And we need interaction and human skills to talk to people. And if we don't have it and we're starting our business, we need to bring somebody on board with us that has that can talk to people, that can explain things to them, that can explain, look, I'm remodeling your house. Here's what it means.
Right.
There's going to be dirt. There's going to be dust. I think it was one of the home builders used to do an advertisement. It's, you're letting your dog out, catch you in your underwear kind of business. It means a business that, okay, we think it's going to take 90 days. It's not. It's going to be 120 days. People would always say, how long is it going to take? And they go, we want this to take 6 months. We go, you can't guarantee that. It doesn't look like that. And here's the reason why. You're going to change something.
Right.
So our initial bid was 100,000. Guess what? It's going to be 150 by the time you're done. We tell them that up front. This is how many change orders you're going to have. You've got to tell people those. You've got to be straightforward. Because as soon as you start holding things back because you're worried that you're not going to get the job, you're going to get the job.
Right.
And then you're going to be in trouble.
Right.
I had a bid years and years, when I was a kid, like 20 years old or something. There was this, my dad and I were doing a job. Lady next door wanted me to do her patio. Experience we had while we were doing this job, I thought, there's no way I want to work for that person.
Right.
And so I doubled my price. Guess what?
You got the
She hired me. So
we
what
can
I
all
should have
relate
said,
to
what
that.
I should have
Every one of
said,
us,
here's
yeah.
what, look, and I hear guys say, well, the general that I always work with is hiring unlicensed guys. What are you going to do about it? And I said, file a complaint. Well, I can't file a complaint about it. Why? Because he won't hire me. I go, he's not hiring you.
Right.
He's never going to hire you. He's hiring the unlicensed guy. File the complaint.
Yeah.
So it's the same way with customers. Be straightforward with them, honest with them. Don't hold anything back. Tell people early and often about any kind of change. Explain to them what a change order is. Mm-hmm. Explain to them that here's what part of this cost is. Part of this cost is the porta-john out there. So our guys, or guys that I don't have fully control over, aren't using your plants.
Right.
Because there's nothing like in the summer having an outdoor restroom in your planter.
That's a whole nother conversation.
But those are things that we
have to
consider
think about
those
all
things. The dumpster, all of those things, and just kind of run through your mind, and then you bid your job. Each job is a little more complicated. Some might take this, some might take. Don't overpromise.
Right.
Underpromise and over deliver. Right. Yep. And we do that in a lot of different kind of things.
Let's talk about what the ROC in the state is doing to become better all around.
That's great. That's great news. So when I first came aboard, I knew there were some things that I wanted to change. First, I knew licensing was ridiculous, and the complaint process was taking way too long. We were taking from a license complaint was taking about 120 days, unlicensed 150, unlicensed about the same amount of time, days before they were closed or before they were passed off to legal, which then is a whole nother time. Because you've got legal, dates that are statutory that you can't change. So 4 to basically 5-6 months to get one of these things closed, which is ridiculous. That affects the contractor, the homeowner, and the like. There were a few other things that I was going, we got to change. So I dove right in. We started cleaning some stuff up right away. And then the governor created a transformation steering team. There were a few directors, about 8 directors that came in. We started talking and realized that we needed all directors. So all cabinet level directors, 32, 35 of us, met for 16 weeks in a row, 4 hours every Friday, by the way. So directors were working on Friday, every Friday. And we engaged with John Bernard, who wrote the book Government That Works, a great guy. And I encourage anybody to read that. And then, and so we started looking at this along with Joe Murley's book on lean, a few other people, and we started talking about these things and how we could make government work more like business. Government, the speed of business. Right. Faster, better, all along the board. And so what agencies started to do, and I'll use our agency as an example, but other agencies did, we started to look at things. Why is our license application 37 pages long? So let's match it up to statute.
That's a good question.
We started matching up to statute. Now I think it's like 6 or 7.
Right.
So because there were a lot of things that were in there that didn't need to be in there. So that's just that one thing. So why are we doing these things? Well, because that's the way we always did things. That's like a death phrase for businesses. So, everybody started looking at these things, and it became an intentional system that had visual metrics, charts on walls. This is where we're going. This was our goal. This, we're green. We're red on this goal. Why are we red? In the lean process, they do what they pull the and on. So you got the cars moving along, and somebody in the line, somebody notices. It comes to them. They go, "This is wrong." Boom. The entire production line stops.
Right.
And they don't go and find somebody to beat up. They say, where did that happen? They find out where it happened, and they fix it, start the line back up. Whoop. And so that's what we do. We do it ongoing. It's part of our culture. It's becoming more and more ingrained, all the way down to our frontline staff. So all these cabinet level agencies are doing these kind of things. So an example, a really great example, a lot of people think, well, you need more technology. Well, technology is never an answer. It's a tool, like a hammer or a screwdriver.
Right.
Unless you get the right operator, it doesn't do anything. So, you ever been to DMV?
Yep.
You notice those numbers, like you've got A12 and some guy gets called that's got X37 before you, and you go, what is that all about?
Yep.
So they had what they called a machine. They called it the machine. Monster computer system. Somehow you get this number and you get called. You go in there at 10 o'clock in the morning, and at 5 o'clock you're still there.
Right.
Well, one day the machine broke. Imagine that. This machine that's helping you sit for 7 hours broke, and terror came across the faces of all these folks at the West Valley DMV. They implemented their triage system, which was sending a human out to the crowd with a notebook and a clipboard, and started going through there. 2:30, the lobby was empty. How can that possibly happen? So they went, let's try that again. Without telling anybody, switch the system off. Same thing. They tried it in another branch. Same thing. So they started changing their process. When you go into the DMV now, there's a little pod. There's somebody out working with everybody in line, if you've ever noticed.
I haven't been lately.
Well, next time you go, there'll be somebody out there, because here's what they found. What they were doing simply because they'd been doing it.
Right.
Not because it worked.
Right.
And so they put together processes that have reduced all that time. And it's reduced the time for everybody. Customers, taxpayers, plus the staff.
Right.
Plus, if you don't have people beating you up all the time, because one, you're the government, and two, it takes too long, you're gonna perform a little better. Because contrary to popular belief, and I'll talk for my staff, but I know other staff, there are good quality people that are trying to do the right thing. I've got people that I have to say, go home.
Right.
And that's frontline people. I walk the floor after 5:30, 6 o'clock, and just say, go home. Now, why would they be there? It's because they want to get something, they want to do the right thing. So what AMS has done, this Arizona management system, this is what all of this morphed into, was a system where we continually improve. It's an intentional system, an intentional management system that is continually improving processes. And if you have a timeline, say you have a timeline that today is, say, I'll just throw a number, say it's 30.
Right.
And your goal is 15. And you get to 15. You go, okay, good, now I'm taking a break. No, you go, let's crank it down to 12. Let's crank it down. So with our licenses, our license issuance being 18 days with a 20-day posting, it's basically 48 hours, basically 2 days. Those are calendar days, by the way.
Right.
Those aren't work days. We
Right.
count calendar days now, not Monday through Friday, eliminate the holidays, any of that stuff. Calendar days is what these are. So that includes 7 days a week, 365 days a year. We're at about, take away that posting that's required by statute, we're at 2 days or less. You can't really get a whole lot faster than that on that portion. So then the next look is to look outside. How can we even make it better for everybody outside the office, everybody, and that's where we come into a situation where we're working on implementing an e-licensing platform is what we call it, and so that contractors will be able to apply online, renew online, make payments online. Non-contractors will be able to file, by the time this is all done, file a complaint online, a variety of different things, because it makes them easier.
Right.
So that people won't have to come into the office. It doesn't mean we don't want them to, but they won't have to.
Right.
So how nice would it be if you lived here? I mean, if you're here at your office and you go, I got to run down to the Capitol. Or no, I can just go online, and that's our goal, to do that. And that's how we're going to continue to improve.
And
that.
AMS is going to take you there.
Well, AMS is taking us there.
Right.
It's every day we look at those kind of things, and we have meetings. You come to our office, and I invite you to come to our office. Come to our office. There's boards all over the place. We call them huddle boards. Each department has a huddle board that shows their goals, shows their successes, a variety of different things. Visual charts.
Heck yeah, I'm going to come check it out.
Please do, yeah. And then afterwards, we'll go over to El Chino for a burrito.
That's even better. I appreciate everything. I appreciate you coming in, and I'm looking forward to seeing all the new things you guys got coming.
Awesome.
And I've had the struggle of filling out all those applications when I started. So
absolutely.
To anything
Me too.
Anything we can do to help the next generation and help give back to contractors is gonna help us all.
Well, Josh, thanks a lot for having me here. This was a great time.
Appreciate it, sir.
Take care.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you like what we're doing here, subscribe to our podcast at iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher, and to our YouTube channel to see more episodes. Go to upandtotheright.org to get all the links.